Good people, good people. Happy, happy, happy Thursday. This is your girl Simona from Lit Love Journey. As you may know, Lit Love Journey is basically, a reading culture, a reading community that exists to promote Black authors, Black book clubs, and really make sure that you have an opportunity to tap into the literary world in a way that maybe you haven't done in the past. I have a very special treat for you today. As you may know, for the month of June, our reading partner was the Well Read Sisters of New York and global locations. We'll be talking to them at 6, but now at this time, we have the privilege and pleasure to be in company with the writer of the reading selection for this month, The Addict Child by Lola J. So I'm going to invite her up and we're just going to have a quick conversation. So again, you can, just get the reading vibe. Lola, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I can't complain. We are here. And
Yeah,
as you know, that's no small feat. Again, we
no,
had some obstacles to get here.
you did.
So thank you for that. I feel like, I'm sure you've done so many of these conversations about your book. But again, when it comes to Lit Love Journey, we want to give like real tips when it comes to like reading culture and just how to be a part of the literary community. Um, what's your favorite place to read, or where do you read? Anything like that you can share with the readers about your lifestyle around reading?
Yeah, because I've been so prolific in writing recently, my head can't physically pick up a physical book right now and read. So what I do, I listen to audiobooks and I'm flying through them. It's crazy. I could do an audiobook now, maybe, once every week, every 10 days. It's great because you can do it while you're cooking and so forth. So that's my life at the moment. Nothing beats a physical book, nothing. But I just thought if I don't have the strength to read a physical book right now, I still need to read. So reading is part of my life. So audiobook has been a really lovely way out. And I never thought it would be. I thought it would be really odd to hear someone's voice. And sometimes it is. If the narration's not good, it doesn't work for me. But if the narration's spot on, then yeah, it's great.
I love that. So y'all, we have permission. An author herself, listens to audiobooks. I don't know, because there are some folks who will say, you have to always pick up a physical book, right? But I like what you just said. If you don't have the strength to necessarily pick up a physical book, just pop it in while you're cooking, pop it in while you're driving your vehicle, right? You can read a book, consume a book while doing other things in your day-to-day life. So absolutely
Absolutely.
love that.
Yeah, and with the Addict Child, the narration for the Addict Child is amazing. I was blown away. Lucien Masamati that reads the main character. He was in Game of Thrones, just putting it out there.
Oh, I love that. Superstar. That is so cool. One of our readers did audio, so she was raving about it. We actually spoke about it yesterday when we were working together. She was just saying how quickly she's gone through this book by having the audio, and how well, like, just engrossed she was able to get into the storyline by the narration. So that's a testament. I did the physical copy because I'm like one of those want to feel it, touch it type people.
Absolutely.
But it's good to know, like, again, there are variations. So I know you said you've been doing a lot of prolific writing. So again, haven't had a chance to like pick up physical copy, but like in terms of your favorite genre of book, or where do you read often? Like, I would love to know. Inquiring minds would love to know, what does that look like for you? What's your genre of
Um,
choice?
my genre, it depends what I'm writing. So I'm writing another historical fiction book at the moment. So I like to read historical fiction at the same time. And sometimes I like to read some classics, whether it be Charles Dickens, that type of stuff. Um, but when I'm writing a thriller, then I want to read a thriller book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it really does depend. Or sometimes I just want to read a romantic comedy because I'm tired and I'm fed up with life. So a romantic comedy set in a French Riviera, that does it for me. So it all depends on my mood. I actually had to write a gothic novel for the first time. I didn't know how to write a gothic novel, just a short story for a charity. And I listened to a gothic novel. That's why I was listening to, Charles Dickens, and I was listening to
Mm-hmm.
Wuthering Heights, because it's not my field. So
Right,
whatever
right.
I'm writing at the time, I like to just read in that field, unless, of course, it's a love story in a French Riviera. That's escapism.
I love it. Look, y'all, escapism. That's an important word. So again, it's an option to just kind of detach from the world, right? And take your mind to an entirely new place. And it
Mm.
sounds like one that's not connected to work, right? Because a lot of your reading is connected to your work. So again, for those authors who I know sometimes would tune in, those are kind of, again, what I'm hearing, some good tips in terms of really being able to strengthen even your writing. That's almost what I hear as an underlining tip for those authors. If you're looking to write in a particular genre, could be helpful to read from that genre while you're also writing something.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I love that. I love that. So, okay. So again, first segment is just always about, and I know we have a super fast time together,
Mhm.
but I would love to just know when it comes to the book, we don't give spoilers,
Mhm.
but what was the most surprising kind of component to your work? Because historical fiction, and some folks may not be familiar with that genre. I know I'm new to the genre, to be honest, entirely. Like the first last 5 years, that was my first opportunity to really read historical fiction. I'm a memoir person. That's like my preference. I love reading a good memoir. But in terms of historical fiction, I would say this is now my second favorite genre to read from. But I'm curious, what was the most surprising thing, that you can share about in writing this book about this particular tragedy that happened in our history?
Sure. I mean, I've written 7 books, but this one stands out for me because I was writing it during a time where the world went crazy because COVID had just happened, and also racism was being discussed everywhere, all over the world for the first time. It was almost like Black people were being told, oh, racism exists, when we already knew that it was there. So I was writing this book that obviously touches on themes of racism, colonization. I put the news on and there was a statue being pulled down of an explorer. And I was writing about an explorer and someone who had been captured. So for the first time in my life, life was imitating art. I was even writing about people in an attic. And I don't know what it was like where you were, but in England, we were told to stay at home. We were not even allowed to leave unless we would face a fine. So I was writing about people being confined whilst kind of also being confined myself. I'm writing about colonialism, racism, and it's been talked about everywhere I looked. So that was unique in itself. And also, this was about a real little boy.
Right.
I saw his photograph in a gallery and I just couldn't get him out of my mind. I needed to write about this child. So when I did some research about him, I found out that he died at the age of 12. So there wasn't really much to write about. So what I then did was set about writing his story, but reimagined. And the question I asked myself was, what would his life have looked like if he'd been allowed to live?
I love that. And I don't know if I said that in my emails or my direct message, y'all. I slid in the DMs to have this opportunity to connect with you, to have this exchange, because I think it's just so important to have as many opportunities for folks to hear from your perspective, your voice, just what it was like writing this book, about the story, and about, again, what it means to read, right? It's a form of escape. It's a form of pleasure. It can be all of those things for you if you take the time to allow that in your life. But and when it comes to the character, again, no spoilers, but Laurie, how much of her, to your point, when you shared, art was reflecting life was reflecting
Mhm.
art, how much of her was heartbreaking for you? Like, you really grappled with writing her story because you were kind of in that, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the 2 children that are in the story, one being white, one being black, I wanted to show that they had identical stories in a way, but one had privilege. So they both were, I don't want to give spoilers, but they were both treated a certain way. But Laura had this privilege that Dikembe would never have. And so writing that whilst everything was going on around me was, yeah, it was very odd. It was very strange. But I love her character because she's kind of, she goes for a lot, as you see in the book. And, you know, as a psychotherapist is my other job. And so I always like to bring mental health into all my writings. So I don't think we talk about mental health enough. On Instagram, on all that lot, it's very sanitized. Mental health is not sanitized. It's not easy. It's not, you know,
It's not a
it's
straight line. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a journey. It literally is
absolutely,
a journey. It is changing
absolutely,
every single day, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely,
not clean at all, right? When you say the word, it's not sanitized. I love that. It's not. But sometimes we like to definitely do the whole bow on it, right? And just
yeah,
make it seem like just get your mental health right, you know? Just go to
exactly.
therapy.
Go for a walk and you'll be fine, you know. And it's so much more than that. So I wanted to kind of really show that in her character, and I hope I was able to show that side of her, but also that she can have a full life as well.
Mhm. I absolutely love that. And I think, you know, again, when readers tap into it, they're like, oh, this is another tool in my box when it comes to wellness, right? When it comes to my mental state, I could just tap into it. What are some other things that you tap into that you kind of pair with reading or writing that you feel really help to make your life a bit brighter?
You know, I just think that it's different for different people, right? And for me, and I think this I can say this for everybody, rest is so important. You know, we don't see rest as glamorous, but it is.
Hmm.
Just doing nothing sometimes, or just putting a TV show on where you don't have to think, or, you know, just it doesn't have to cost money. But I think rest is the one that is my number one, because I think we live in this culture where this grind culture, you know, I heard a horrific statement once saying, I'll rest when I'm dead. Really? You know, and so no, I don't subscribe to that. Rest is luxurious. If you can stay in bed a bit longer, or, you know, just lounge or read in bed, you know, whatever it is, but rest is important. And that's my one. And I think women, Black women,
Hmm.
mhm,
Say that again.
need
Say
that
that
same
again.
love. Yeah, we can't take on everyone's problems and not look at ourselves, because it manifests itself in our body. And I said I'm a therapist, so this is something
Hmm.
that I come across all the time.
I love
That's
that. Thank you for saying that. I don't think we can hear that messaging
mm,
enough. And again, just last question around the book. I am a bit curious, like from your perspective, especially with like Black Americans, when they pick up a book like this, uh, what are some of the things you hope that they'll walk away with learning about themselves, right? Because again, I think we're getting more accustomed to reading, you know, from British writers, like and I think it's that again that cultural exchange is so
mhm,
important, and I think it will help us obviously have better relations
mhm.
with folks around the globe, as you know, Blackness is it's all over, you know, our continent. But I'm just curious, what you hope we would
Yeah.
walk away learning.
Firstly, we are kin. We are one. Okay. We are one family. I don't know what that sounds corny.
No,
We are.
yeah.
But also, I don't want anyone, and I never want this with my writing, that people will just see a trauma fest. I'm not here to do trauma porn. So yeah,
Mhm.
there are very, very hard themes in this book. I'm not going to shy away from that, because it happened. You know, we must never forget that the history that happened. But I will always make sure that the end, and this is not giving a spoiler, you will walk away hopeful. That's the most important thing, that the reader must walk away hopeful, not laid down with more trauma, because you know what, living this in this society is trauma enough.
Hmm.
So I feel that when you finish my book, I want it to be light and hope in your heart.
I love that. And y'all, yes, it is it's a dense book, but when I tell you it's so easy to go through 100 pages in a sitting. If you have that time, if you carve out that time, it's so easy to really consume this book. Because to your point, it didn't feel for me burdensome at
Good.
all. It was exactly the opposite. It felt like a part of like the healing to some degree, right? To just
Mhm.
again reimagine what could have been, and then also just take a look at some of the atrocities, right, that
Mhm.
happen. And I love how you put it to our kinfolk,
Mhm.
and really look at, you know, where can we just just, improve just a little bit more, right, in terms of how we connect with one another, how we exchange with one another. And I think both characters will teach you a whole lot about like humanity, right, and about how we can see ourselves and just treat ourselves with a little bit more care when we're going through life, be it the hard moments or the really good moments. So thank you for giving us something to digest, something to consume that is so beautifully written and so vivid in terms of all of the description and all of the journey that you take us on. As a wrap up, I would love for you to share anything that you feel is important. Again, this is meant to be consumed by those who maybe don't have as much time to read, don't consider themselves avid readers. But any tips that you have, any events that you have coming up, I would love to for you to share that at this moment.
Events, or nothing in America.
Not yet. Not yet.
No, not yet. But sorry, the question was
any tips that you have or anything you have coming up that you want readers, those who may not consider themselves avid readers, to know about, even if it's a resource. I know in certain places there are virtual communities, just anything that could be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a local library, start there. They're very under-resourced. But, I remember, libraries are great for me growing up, and, and I'm sure it's the same as in England. The books are free, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the plug.
Yeah. So, I would take advantage of that. And there's so many online, book groups like this, join them, meetups and so forth. As for me, well, you can add me on Instagram, Twitter. Twitter can be a little bit toxic, but, I try and stay away from the arguments. But Instagram's nice and fluffy. TikTok, and if you read the book, please review, because reviews are so important to writers. So important. So please do that. And just keep reading, and don't let anybody tell you that you have to read a certain genre, that you have to read the classics. If you haven't read a Toni Morrison, that's okay. I know people are horrified when people say they haven't read these amazing works of literature, but maybe you don't want to read that yet. Maybe you want to read something modern and then go back to that. Don't let anyone tell you what to read. Just read what you want to read, okay? Whether it's literature or something about spaceships, whatever. If it's a comic, whatever, reading is reading. As long as someone is reading, it doesn't really matter what it is. We don't have to be snobbish about this.
That part. Yeah. And again, that is a big part why Lit Love Journey exists. And I was just going to also invite you and those, again, who will listen to this on the replay, July 20th, we are having a read-in, and we want to get in habit of having read-ins that happen collectively in different places. So July 20th, if you are at a bar, go to a bar and pull out your book and read. Go to a restaurant, pull out your book and read. Go to a public setting where folks are, because part of this, we're doing it because it's demonstrative, to be in action together, to do something collectively. But we also know at read-ins, we have an opportunity to, again, be resourceful to someone else. Our last read-in was just this past week. We were able to give away free books to the workers at the bar. We were able to talk to our fellow neighbors and about books, which is kind of great, because it's not this inauthentic conversation about work. We do that a lot. Where do you work? What do you do? Who do you know? That kind of thing. But if we're able to have human connection that exists on a totally different, vibration, you never know what could happen. You end up making really good friends. You end up learning something new. It's just a beautiful thing. So definitely keep that in mind. Thank you again, Lola, so very much. I know your book is behind you. I like to do this as a close, if you don't mind. I like to do what I like to call books up, bad vibes down. And then I'll clip this so we can use it as content later. But I want folks to always remember that books up, bad vibes down. Okay? Because that's what life we need more of, just positivity. So thank you again very much. I know our time has definitely went over. Thank you so much for spending time together on the Lit Love Journey podcast.
You're welcome, and thank you for all you do for the reading, for books and so forth. Thanks for that.
Absolutely, happy to. Couldn't have it any other way.
Take care.